facing Washington. We've got the departure of Elon Musk. We've got new misadventures from our Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We got all sorts of good stuff to talk about. But we're going to start with this clip from Iowa Senator Jody Ernst, who talked to a group of her constituents back in Iowa last week, who were complaining about the fact that the big cuts in Medicare and the president's big bad budget bill could lead to the deaths of thousands of people. And Senator Ernst didn't seem to be too upset about that.
So when we're talking about the corrections in this reconciliation bill, again, it's corrections of overpayments and people that have not been eligible for these programs by law as it is currently written. So when you are arguing about illegals that are receiving Medicaid benefits, 1.4 million, 1.4, they are not eligible, so they will be coming off. So people are not, well, we all are going to die.
Yeah, we are. You can't argue with that. We are. Problem, as I see it, is thousands of people, maybe millions of people who lose health care benefits from the federal government are going to die a lot earlier than they would otherwise if they could afford and receive decent health care. Sarah, you want to weigh in on Senator Earth's comments?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I love being on your show. I'm so glad
We've missed you, Sarah.
I've missed you guys. So I'm really glad to be here. And I want to say that it looks to me like the Republicans have ushered in those death panels that they were talking about so much years ago. They are the death panels now. So they are literally going to toss 14 to 15 million people off of Medicaid or off of their health care, and that will cause people to die. And so they have become the death panels. Oddly, when they were calling Obama's Obamacare death panels, that was found to be the lie of the year. And now here we are, fast forward, like, what is it, 10 plus years. And now they're literally out there enacting their own death panels. Like, that's what they're doing. So I don't, the fact that she could say that to people. Oh, and then her apology video where she was like, well, people didn't seem to be aware that we're all going to die. Actually, people do know that. That's why they're so scared. And it's really not something to be sarcastic about. It kind of shows how out of touch a lot of these lawmakers are. They're just, maybe they make too much money to understand what everyone else is going through. But, people that are on Medicaid will die if they get tossed off Medicaid and they need medication they can't afford.
Yeah, and kids will go hungry too, because one of the other big budget cut for domestic spending to pay for the tax cuts for bankers and billionaires is nutrition benefits, food. So not only will lots of people die, but people will starve and suffer from malnutrition. And I wanted to play that clip from Senator Ernst because she was so callous about it. Hey, people die. Nothing we can do about it. Well, we can do something about it if we have the will.
Well, that's the whole thing. The way this is really harkening back to the way they treated COVID during the pandemic when Trump was in office, that they wanted to ignore the deaths and yet some people were going to die and that was fine because they were old. These kind of attitudes towards vulnerable populations are so profoundly disturbing, and they should be. And it's weird that these are the people that wear these big crosses and talk about their religion all the time and try to present themselves as a party in general as these highfalutin Christians. They're led by Mike Johnson, who really identifies that way. And yet here they are doing something so fundamentally immoral, because we're all brought up, I mean, I don't know how these people were brought up, but I know that most of the decent people in this country were brought up to believe, like, you see somebody hungry, you lend them, you give them part of your lunch, or you give them, you would always want to help people. I just don't understand what has turned these people into people with no empathy. They're not touched by, they see starving people, they see people that are going to die because of what they're doing, and they don't care. And I find that very troubling.
Yeah, I do too. I remember last week, hours before the House voted for the president's big bill, which included uh, hundreds of billions of dollars in cuts for health care and for food aid. Speaker Johnson, who considers himself a very religious man and wears it on his sleeve, held a prayer service for his caucus before the vote. And why are they praying for the success of a bill that will cut health care and food aid and lead to, probably the deaths of thousands of people? I mean, we can sugarcoat it, but my guess is people will, in fact, die if these cuts go into effect.
Well, that's exact they will. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they reconcile with their supposed beliefs with their actions. But I think, to call this the reverse Robin Hood bill, I've been calling it the big betrayal bill, because to me it betrays everything that we as a country have been so proud of. That we were a country that upheld democracy, that we took care of the vulnerable. These are things that made America great, in the sense that it ever was. I'm just saying that I don't know that I buy the whole America's, the best country in the world. Like, that's a lot of that nationalism to me is a little disturbing. But I love this country, and a lot of the things that make it great are things that they are destroying. Uh,
Oh, yeah, by the way, I'll have a new column on the president's big bad budget bill coming out in the Hill tomorrow. You can read it at muckrack.com/ Brad Bannon, probably tomorrow afternoon sometime. But one of the things I mentioned in the column is, to their credit, 70%, 7 out of every 10 Americans opposed the Medicaid cuts in the president's bill. So not only is there going to be, severe health and nutritional problems, but it's probably going to hurt Republicans. What do you think will happen if, my guess is that the Senate bill will change the House bill, but my guess is there's still going to be hundreds of billions of dollars in cuts in healthcare and food aid. What do you think is that going to cost the Republicans next November? I hope.
well, it should. The thing is that they've staggered all that, as you know, to come out after elections so that it doesn't hurt them. So it's all about how much people are paying attention. But I do think that, unfortunately for them, when he brought in Elon Musk, that we'll talk about that in a minute. But when he
We'll
brought in,
talk about him in the next segment.
yes, and when we do, I think he brought a lot of attention because of the way he conducted these cuts and the way he conducted himself. And so that has focused a lot of people's attention on what Republicans are doing, even though a lot of what they're doing with this bill, they're doing like late at night because they don't want people to know. And I think Speaker Johnson, I think you mentioned he was on, the Sunday shows. He's just lying to the American people about this bill. He's lying on television. It doesn't cut Medicaid, he says. That is just not true. And I don't know how we grapple with a party that is out here just lying.
Well, as I say in the column on the speaker's part, it's either willful ignorance or he's completely delusional. I haven't figured out which one yet. We're going to go to a break in a few seconds for our radio audience, but we will continue this discussion on Deadline DC with Brad Bannon with our special guest, Sarah Jones, editor-in-chief of Politicus USA. We're going to talk about Elon Musk, who has left town, at least temporarily. But we'll be right back after this very quick break.
There are a ton of social networking websites, but one stands apart for a very special reason. This one saves lives. It's Matt.
Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. We're talking about the president's big bad budget bill today, among other things. And this next segment, we're going to talk about the Trump budget cut mastermind, Elon Musk. Our guest in this half hour is Sarah Jones, editor-in-chief of Politicus USA. Sarah, the Elon Musk announced his departure from Washington and from Dodge. He got out of Dodge essentially, the Department of Federal Government Efficiency. Uh, what kind of legacy does he leave behind if
Well,
he's really gone, which I have my doubts about?
yeah, I think that's interesting to talk about. Elon Musk came in with the Nazi salute and he left with the black eye. And I think that those two books,
Literally and figuratively.
literally and figuratively, and I think that those two bookends really tell the story of Elon Musk's time in our government. That is how he conducted himself. And the day he left, or was it the day before, the New York Times, where, it's kind of known that that's where Trump leaks stories to, came out with this reporting about Elon Musk's drug use, alleged drug use, during or ramped up during his campaigning with Trump in the 2024 election. And, it's kind of interesting. They were talking about he's on ketamine, ecstasy, and psychedelic mushrooms. I think that coming out was that kind of, I've been saying this since the first day that he was in with Trump, that Trump would use him up and throw him away when he was done and done with him. And I don't know that he's done with him yet. And I don't know that Trump knows if he's done with him yet, but I know that Trump is already planting those seeds for how he will be destroyed. And I wouldn't be surprised if when Trump is done with him, we see some kind of investigation into his drug use. And then, it's determined that, oh, he can't have federal contracts because he's on drugs, which, you're not supposed to be on as a federal contractor. And what's really interesting about that is if Elon had never married himself to Donald Trump, Joe Biden probably never would have authorized any kind of investigation into his drug use because he just wants
Yeah,
to die. So,
yeah. The thing I remember most about Musk is when he blazed on the scene early in the year, he made that famous speech about the need for budget cuts, brandishing a chainsaw at the Conservative Political Action Conference. And I thought to myself when I saw that, Donald Trump does not like to be outshined. And it's just a matter of time until Trump just can't stand to have Musk around anymore. And I think you're right. I think that's they maneuvered his disappearance and the aftermath. The polling nationally showed that Musk was very unpopular with voters, and I'm sure vulnerable Republican members of Congress were more than happy to see him go. We're going to bring back our radio listeners now with more of Deadline DC with Brad Bannon and Sarah Jones right after this very quick break. Welcome back to our radio audience. This is Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. Our guest in this half hour is Sarah Jones, editor-in-chief of Politicus USA. We talked about Elon Musk as another member of the Trump administration I'd like to discuss, and that's our erstwhile Secretary of Health and Human Services, uh, uh, Robert Kennedy Jr. Now, later this week, it will be a tragic anniversary of his father's um, assassination while he was campaigning in California for President of the United States. In 1968, RFK, the father, was one of my political heroes, and this is an anniversary which depresses me because I think it marked a unfortunate turning point in American politics. Now RFK's son is installed as our Secretary of Health and Human Services. He wants to stop or severely limit vaccine use to combat serious illnesses. He got to some hot water this week after his department released a report on vaccinations that was had all sorts of incorrect facts and figures in it. What's your take on RFK Jr.?
Well, I think we need to remember that this is the guy that said that Black people shouldn't be on the same vaccination schedule as white people. And he doesn't believe HIV causes AIDS. He shouldn't be in this position. We all know that. He's there because he sucked up to Trump during the campaign, and here he is. He's a very dangerous person in terms of his beliefs. You know, these beliefs, if he's off running some kind of anti-vax granola website, is dangerous enough, and they have been dangerous enough during the pandemic. But to put him in charge of all of this, and now they're not continuing on with the bird flu vaccination. There's all kinds of things that he is doing that are dangerous. But that report that he's basing, so much of his "Make America Healthy Again" mandate, that report, fake citations, broken links, fake studies. It's just this really gives the picture. The Donald Trump presidency is sort of the RFK Jr. and Elon Musk. If you put both of them on either side of Donald Trump, they kind of flesh out his entire character. He's a showman who is a big scam artist and doesn't have any kind of relationship to reality. Donald Trump never has, and now he's got a whole cabinet full of people like that.
Reality? What's that?
Yeah, exactly. So studies are schmutties. It doesn't matter to them. They just make stuff up. Somebody said that this looked like it could have been written by AI. And I wouldn't be surprised that if they just did an AI study. I mean, this should have taken years. What they did, it wasn't even recommended. It's just like, here's this whole thing. It took 2 months to put this together. You ask any scientist or academic person, and you're not going to put this huge study together in 2 months. That's ridiculous. I mean, none of this is how things go. But again, this all goes back to the way that under Trump and even before Trump, Republicans viewed the government as like this big thing that only they could fix, and it should be run like a business and all of that. They have done everything in their power to show what is wrong with that thinking and that it doesn't work in government. And actually, I think somebody working under Elon Musk, who was fired for saying this, said, wow, I was expecting to get in here and find all these people not doing their job. And it turns out these people are doing a good job and they love their work. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that people don't realize is like the people running the government, for the most part, they're doing really good work. And it's important. And yeah, it's frustrating to have paperwork and that stuff takes so much longer in the government. But this is why you see someone come in like, RFK Jr. and like Elon Musk, and you see the way that they destroy things. That's why this stuff is set up the way that it is.
Well, that's a good description because my sense of people like Musk and RFK Jr., and I always hate repeating his name because his father was one of my heroes. But they are so blunt, they've got these things. They want to make cuts in government, they want to end vaccinations, and they're so fixed on their goals that they don't factor in any empathy or compassion for the people who are going to suffer because they're basically blind, fixed ideologues who just care about whatever their pet issue is, and they don't care about real people.
And I was wondering about this. I'm willing to bet money that everybody else in the Trump administration is going to get that bird flu vaccination and everything
Yeah.
else, right? But they're going to let everybody else in the country suffer, just like they did during COVID. And Yeah, I think that we used to know that the people you put in the White House should be someone you want your kids to look up to, should be somebody that is aspirational, that is someone that, whose character people admire. And now it's like, and I feel like our the entire press is kind of like in on this, like we want a showman and we want a show, we want a circus. And that's what we have here. We have a very dangerous, very chaotic, uh very divorced from humanity circus.
Yeah, it really is. It's like a glorified reality show, and a lot of people like reality shows. And I guess for Trump supporters, that's exactly what they're getting. In the time we have left, I want to topic I wanted to discuss. Actually, you gave me the idea for it. It seemed to me during the campaign, Donald Trump made at least two promises that I can think of offhand. There are probably others that he can't or won't keep. One was to bring down inflation and consumer prices on day one of his presidency. Well, we're well into 100 plus days, and it's still going up. He also said a couple times during the campaign that he could bring peace between Russia and Ukraine within 24 hours. Well, we're way past that mark too. Do you think Trump is going to come to regret these promises? Do you think people actually hold him accountable? People don't seem to hold him accountable for these ridiculous pie in the sky promises he make. They sound good when he makes them. He's not able to follow through on them, of course, because they're unrealistic to begin with. But he seems to, escape the fallout.
Yeah,
Is that just because he's putting on such a great show?
yeah, I don't know. I think it's, I keep noticing how there is no bar for Trump to, it's not even on the ground. It's like lower than the ground, and he just tells the press whatever he wants them to focus on, and they just go along with it. It's it's almost like watching people that have been hypnotized or something. It doesn't make sense to me. A lot of times I feel like what is happening right now, Russia just they just had Russia and Ukraine just had their meetings, and Russia rejected the idea of the US involvement in the talks and doesn't seem excited about a summit between Putin and Zelensky, even if Trump comes. So, they've already humiliated Trump so many times. I'm calling this, the taco, Trump always chickens out. I'm calling this his taco doctrine of fail. So it applies to everything. It's not just the tariffs. It's the promises he made in the campaign. It's the economy. It's the bill. It's all of it. It's a big taco doctrine of fail.
Yep. Uh, Trump always chickens out, especially when it counts. Uh, well, we've got midterm elections next year. Do you think Trump can? I mean, consumer prices are still rising. He hasn't things are as messy or messier in Ukraine than they were before he started office. Do you think voters will actually hold him accountable for these things during the midterm elections next year?
I mean, if it's always hard to predict after this last election. I'm kind of like, okay, I think I can be making comments anymore. But not that I did then either, because after the 2016, I was like, no thanks. But I do think that if history is any teacher, yes, they will be held accountable. I think it could be a brutal bloodbath for them. People are waking up, and it's interesting because I hear it here in this Trump land that I live in. And people wake up to the weirdest things. It's not the stuff that you and I, who pay attention to this stuff every day, think, oh, that's what should be what you should care about. But it's things on the periphery sometimes that people are like, hey, I don't like that. And I don't like the way that you're, not using a due process. Like I've heard that here from Trump supporters. So it's very strange. You never know what is going to bother people.
Sarah, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I'm sure we'll have you back to continue this discussion. I want to thank my guest, Sarah Jones from Politicus USA, and Kate Ackley from Bloomberg Government, as well as my executive producer, Mark Grimaldi, who makes sure the train runs on time. and the show stays online. We'll be back soon, next Monday, actually.